Many people think 3D films only truly began with Avatar in 2009, that it was the milestone that ushered in a new era. But the truth is quite different. The first confirmed 3D film, The Power of Love, premiered on September 27, 1922, at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. For the first time in history, viewers wore special glasses and saw images on the screen as if they were stepping out right in front of them. Even more surprising is that the science behind it is even older. This technology originated in the 19th century, when a Victorian scientist invented the stereoscope, a device that transforms flat images into three-dimensional ones. Back then, people would often sit in their living rooms wearing strange glasses just to watch a picture of a horse that looked like it was flying straight out of the frame. So, when you sat in the theater in 2009 watching Avatar and thought, oh, the future is here, then in reality, you're just witnessing the next chapter of a cinematic experiment that your great great grandparents started nearly a century ago. Video calls. You might think video calls are a recent invention with smartphones, but the idea is actually almost a century old. As early as the 1920s, German engineers experimented with a video telephone system, transmitting images over telephone wires. For that time, it was no different than science fiction. 40 years later, in the 1960s, American telecommunications giant AT&T officially introduced the picture phone, which allowed you to see the person on the other end of the line. However, this device is both bulky and expensive, so few people can afford to use it. By the 1990s, with the explosion of the internet and webcams, video calls finally became truly accessible to the average user. And then, the big turning point came in 2010, when Apple launched FaceTime with the iPhone 4. For the first time in history, video calls are contained in a pocket-sized, easy-to-use device, and are in the hands of millions of people. Vending machines. Most people believe that vending machines have only appeared in recent years as a modern convenience in airports or schools. But the truth is far from that. Back in the 1st century AD, a Greek engineer named Hero of Alexandria designed a device to dispense holy water for temples. You drop a coin in, the lever tilts, and a measured amount of water pours out. Essentially, it's the world's first vending machine. Nearly 2,000 years have passed, and vending machines no longer dispense holy water, but instead offer French fries, candy bars, and soft drinks. So, what kind of machine do you use today at school or in the office? It's not a flashy modern invention, it's a descendant of a brilliant idea that began nearly 2 millennia ago: self-driving cars. Most people think self-driving cars only appeared recently with Tesla, like something ripped straight from a sci-fi movie. But the truth is, humans have been chasing the dream of driverless cars for almost a century. In the 1920s, engineers staged demos of driverless cars, guided by radio signals, basically giant remote control cars cruising through city streets. By the 1980s, research labs like Carnegie Mellon's NavLab were strapping bulky cameras and computers onto car rooftops, teaching them how to see and make decisions on their own. These prototypes looked clunky, but they proved the concept. So while Tesla promotes self-driving cars today as the future, the reality is autonomous vehicles have been rolling down roads for decades, just waiting for modern technology to finally catch up. 3D printing. Most people think 3D printing is a flashy breakthrough of the 21st century, but in reality, the roots go back to the 1980s. In 1984, engineer Chuck Hull invented stereolithography, a process where UV light solidifies liquid resin layer by layer. It was basically the ancestor of today's sleek desktop printers. The first machines were massive, expensive, and found only in factories, mostly used for rapid prototyping. But over time, the technology got smaller, cheaper, and easier to use. So nowadays, when you see people printing toys, shoes, or even entire houses today, remember, it's not some brand new miracle. It's an old idea that finally shrank down to fit on your desk. Microwave. You might think microwaves only showed up recently, born out of our busy work lives and the need to reheat leftovers in minutes. But that's a misconception. The microwave story actually began by accident in the 1940s. Engineer Percy Spencer, while working on radar technology, noticed that a candy bar in his pocket had mysteriously melted. Curious, he aimed microwaves at popcorn kernels. And boom, instant popcorn. By 1947, the first microwave ovens were released, but they weren't the compact appliances we know today. They were the size of a refrigerator, weighed 750 pounds, and cost more than most people earned in a year. So the little box you use now to warm up last night's pizza, it's really just the sleek descendant of a wartime oops moment that turned into one of the most essential kitchen tools on Earth. Electric cars. Most people think electric cars are a brand new invention, something that only popped up recently with Tesla. But the truth is, electric cars have been around for well over a century. Back in the 1890s, electric cars were actually more popular than gasoline ones. They were quiet, clean, and easy to drive. So much so that in 1900, about a third of all cars in the US were electric. Famous inventors like Thomas Edison even worked on better batteries to power them. But as roads expanded and cheap gasoline flooded the market, gas cars quickly took over. By the 1920s, electric cars had all but disappeared from the mainstream. Fast forward nearly 100 years, and advances in batteries and renewable energy have brought them back. So when Tesla calls EVs the future, it's really just reviving a past that never quite disappeared. Brain surgery. Most people think brain surgery is a modern breakthrough, made possible only with advanced hospitals and high-tech machines. But that's a myth. Humans have been operating on skulls for thousands of years. The earliest evidence comes from over 7,000 years ago, when ancient people practiced trepanation, cutting small round holes into the skull. Surprisingly, many patients survived, as archaeologists found signs of bone healing around the wounds. Fast forward to the 20th and 21st centuries, and brain surgery has transformed into highly precise neurosurgery, using microscopes, lasers, and advanced imaging. But the core idea, opening the skull to treat the brain, has remained the same for millennia. So the next time you think brain surgery is brand new science, remember, our ancestors were already attempting it with stone tools long before scalpels and surgical robots existed. Sunglasses. Do you think sunglasses just appeared recently? You are wrong. Humans have been wearing shades for survival long before they became stylish. In the 12th century, Chinese judges used smoked quartz lenses during trials to hide their emotions. And even earlier, the Inuit in the Arctic carved glasses from bone or wood, cutting narrow slits to protect their eyes from the brutal glare of sunlight bouncing off snow and ice. So before Ray-Ban made cool sunglasses, they were already a life-saving technology. Alarm clocks. Everyone thinks alarm clocks are a product of the industrial age, born when factories needed workers to wake up on time. But nope, humans have been inventing ways to drag themselves out of bed for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks built water clocks that released sounds at regular intervals. In the 4th century BC, the philosopher Plato even had a steam-powered device that whistled to wake him up. Basically the world's first wake-up call. By the 18th century in England and Ireland, there were professional knocker-uppers who went door-to-door tapping on windows with sticks, or even shooting peas through straws just to get people out of bed. So long before your iPhone alarm, waking up wasn't just a routine, it was an art of survival. Touchscreens. Most people think touchscreens were born with the first iPhone in 2007, that famous Steve Jobs swipe that changed everything. But that's a myth. The very first touchscreen was actually invented back in 1965 by a British engineer named E.A. Johnson. It was designed for air traffic control, helping operators track and manage planes more efficiently. Of course, the tech was clunky and expensive back then, not exactly pocket-sized, but it proved the concept. Decades later, companies like Apple simply took that old idea, shrunk it down, polished it up, and turned it into something we can't stop swiping. So no, tech bros didn't invent touchscreens. They just made them addictive. Automatic door. Most people think automatic doors are a modern invention, created only when we had electricity and motion sensors. But that's a myth. The idea of doors that open by themselves goes all the way back to the 1st century AD. It was the Greek inventor Hero of Alexandria, the same man who designed the first vending machine, who came up with the mechanism. Here's how it worked. When a fire was lit on the altar, the hot air expanded, pushing water into a container. The shifting weight pulled on a system of pulleys and counterweights, which in turn swung the huge temple doors open. For ancient worshippers, it felt like the gods themselves were opening the doors. But in truth, it was just ingenious mechanical engineering. Fast forward to today, and the automatic doors at some stores on the same principle, only now the fire and pulleys have been replaced by infrared sensors and electric motors. Fidget Spinner. You think fidget spinners exploded out of nowhere in 2017, like some brand new toy craze? But the truth is, they'd been around for much longer. The actual patent for a fidget spinner was filed back in 1993, 2 decades before the viral craze hit classrooms. And if you look even further back, ancient cultures already had their own spinning toys. The Maya, for example, made little clay tops that kids spun for fun thousands of years ago. So, no, Karen, your kid didn't stumble onto a revolutionary new way to zone out in math class. Fidgeting with spinning toys is basically Stone Age stress relief, just rebranded in plastic. VR headsets. Most people think VR headsets are a brand new invention, something that only appeared in the last few years with gaming and the metaverse. But that's a big misconception. The very first VR machine actually dates back to 1962, and it was called the Sensorama. This wasn't just a headset, it was a whole machine. Imagine sitting in front of a giant box that gave you a screen for your eyes, surround sound in your ears, a vibrating seat under you, and even a fan that blew smells right at your face. The only problem? It was enormous. To use it, you had to stick your head into something that looked like a washing machine. Not exactly portable, but definitely proof that the dream of VR started long before Oculus or PlayStation ever showed up.
MP3 players. You might think MP3 players were born in the 2000s, but the roots go back much earlier. In the late 1980s, engineers at Germany's Fraunhofer Institute cracked the code for the MP3 compression format, shrinking audio files small enough to fit on computers without losing too much quality. A decade later, in 1998, South Korea released the MP-Man, the first commercial MP3 player. That's a full 3 years before the iPod ever showed up. So when Apple arrived in 2001 claiming to revolutionize music, what they really did was take a clever idea that already existed and package it so well that the whole world finally paid attention. Contact lenses. The idea for contact lenses was first sketched by Leonardo da Vinci in 1508. However, it wasn't until the late 19th century that the first contact lenses made of glass were produced, though they were bulky and inconvenient. A major breakthrough occurred in the mid-20th century when Otto Victorla and Drahoslav Lim invented soft contact lenses made from hydrogel, providing superior comfort and safety. Today, with the development of silicone hydrogel materials and disposable lenses, contact lenses have become incredibly convenient and popular worldwide.
Plant-based meat. Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat feel futuristic, right? Wrong. People have been making fake meat for over 1,000 years. In ancient China, Buddhist monks were already whipping up tofu, duck, and pork out of soy. In the 1890s, John Harvey Kellogg, the cornflakes guy, patented a peanut-based meat substitute. So yeah, your vegan burger isn't Silicon Valley magic. It's history repeating itself with better branding. Scuba diving equipment. You might think scuba gear was born with modern wetsuits, but the idea goes way back. In the 16th century, inventors sketched diving bells, big air-filled chambers that let people stay underwater longer. By the 19th century, bulky brass helmets with surface air hoses appeared, turning divers into walking submarines. The real breakthrough came in 1943 when Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnon created the Aqualung, the first modern scuba system with portable air tanks. Today's sleek gear is just a refined version of centuries-old underwater dreams. And there you have it. Brand new inventions that are actually old-school throwbacks. If you enjoyed having your mind blown and maybe your history teacher redeemed a little, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and stick around. Because the next time you think something is new, we might just show you its ancient history in disguise.